points in this matchup as much as the removal spells matter. The removal spells matter more than anything else in this matchup, I think.
Sure, but it doesn't also hurt to build up your board, and if you draw into the Flame Tongue, as opposed to having just all the removal, that also gives you another option.
So the question there is how important toteming is versus the Haunted Creeper. Because the totem will allow you to, on turn 4, play a totem and the Haunted Creeper. And his hand doesn't have any action otherwise. So that's like a totally reasonable assumption to be in.
Well,
Feral Spirits would be a really aggressive play here, but I'm not going to say that I mind that. I think it's a pretty smart decision, honestly.
You're prepared for any 4-drop, essentially.
Right. His hand is strong enough that he can take these aggressive stances.
Well,
this isn't something he feels like he has to conserve with. Ooh, Alex Straza is sort of a card that I wouldn't expect to see, given how you have to fit in all things like Sludge Belchers.
Yeah, I mean, this Twilight Drake does hurt, but he does have something of a win condition.
Oh my gosh, and he also drew Doomhammer. Wait a minute. 10? Oh my gosh, this could potentially be lethal next turn.
What? No, he does have the Sludge Belcher. But damn, that would have been a crazy way to end the game.
Oh my gosh, you drew a second Hex? I don't think that Reels is very safe here at all. This looks bad, like really bad news for Reels.
He needs a way to remove these minions, and while being able to put up his own, basically stop any kind of damage coming in through. But how is he supposed to tell?
I don't think he can, and I think it's just the power that Shaman has in this matchup. Is that when it draws well, it does not allow the handlock the liberty to do what it wants to do. I think you have to Hex here. I mean, the Hex is effectively 7 points of damage that you're dealing. Or 6 points of damage, rather. And then here's the question is, how low do you put your opponent at? Because you're already threatening lethal. So you just don't want your opponent to be able to play Molten Giant and then taunt it. So Reels is going into 6 mana next turn, so you kind of like want your opponent at the 15 mark. 15 actually would just be perfect. So at 14, he's going to leave it right there. He's forcing his opponent to have a way to taunt up, clear the board, or have Sun Fury, Molten Giant. But at the same time, he wants to consider if this board gets swept, can he just Doomhammer and Rockbiter and kill his opponent? So there's merit to take him to 12 as well. This is a really tough spot.
I think it's okay, because if he Hellfires as well, he puts himself within range, assuming some things live. While Rio top decks Loatheb, and that's going to be it? Just like that?
No, it's going to save him for a turn. No, it's going to save him for a turn.
Oh, the Doomhammer. The Doomhammer, that's right. The Rockbiter doesn't... Oh, wow. Okay.
A 6-point Lightning Bolt. Oh, this might just be the push turn now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now he's got 10 points of damage. Yeah, I think you just make the push here.
Okay, so you have Lightning Bolts to kind of follow up to potentially lethal.
I think he's gonna take his opponent to 4. Yep.
All right. Well,
yeah, I agree too. Wow.
The entire Owners of Burden is back on Reels. And not only does he have to deal with everything else on the board, he has to also worry about what's in the hand of his opponent.
He's 7 mana. I don't think he can live through this.
I'm looking for an alternative of some way. Can he use Shadow Flame to the best of his ability? Try to draw it out. But it looks like he's just going to taunt up as much as possible. He loses power. Yep. I mean, that's fine.
That's going to do it.
2 turns, but it won't matter.
Wow.
Because the Rockbiter's going to come out. Double Rockbiter. Why not? Why not?
He's looking for a way to kill him with the Doomhammer Rockbiters.
Oh my gosh. You can. But
well,
at the same time, you don't have to. 2 out of 10. That's what I give it to the BM.
10! Wow.
Not even 1 out of 10. That was pretty weak. But you know what? It's exacties for lethal, and Alchemist will move on after a lightning-fast start, no pun intended, to be able to end the series at Game 5, and Reels will have to fall to the lower bracket, despite on the playing stellar Paladin deck. He will drop here. But, I mean, we don't want to take credit away from Alchemist whatsoever, because he played very intelligently. I liked how he was showing all kinds of decision-making. Kind of, like, encompassed by that entire exchange of the web spinner and the tokens. If you kind of think back that far, Admirable, and think about, like, how these guys have been thinking and making decisions for a long time about how to jockey for position. So I like a lot of what we showed this game. I think these guys demonstrated their skill. It's unfortunate that one had to drop to the lower bracket this early. But Reels, he's a player that also can fight back from the lower bracket, so good luck to him.
Yeah, I think something that really came into play that match also is in the last game, Alchemix trusted his read that he knows that Reels likes to play handlock a lot.
That's right. Yeah.
And he actually mulliganed the Lightning Storm. He was like, you know what? I think he's playing handlock. This Lightning Storm, I don't want it to be stuck in my hand. I'm going to mulligan to try to strengthen my draw. He trusted his read. His read was right, and it really paid off for him.
Very well done by Alchemist. Let's take a look and examine the brackets real quickly before we go. We're only halfway through the day, if you can believe it. We're 5 hours in, which is kind of ridiculous. I hope it's not going to be the case for the rest, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind because we've been having epic series. When we come back, the last quarterfinals of Tides of Time versus Brad before we move on to Winners Round 2. You're watching WEC Qualifiers with Florian Ambrose. Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championship North American Qualifier with Frodan, and that's admirable. Let's take a quick look at the bracket once more, just to show people and kind of check in where we are, because some people are joining us mid-broadcast. We are realizing that it's starting to get to that hours of EU, and NA is starting to pile in in terms of the hours. So welcome to anybody who's just joined the broadcast. So far, we've had 3 series, and we're going to have Tides of Time versus Brad. Admiral, can you break down what happened so far today?
Well, Amaz fell just short to Firebat after Firebat put on a very impressive show with his decision-making skills, exactly getting lethal in one of the games. Strife Crow was able to be victorious over Reynad as he showed sort of the power that he can tout with new builds that we haven't exactly been seeing him play very much. And, of course, Alchemix, as we just saw, took down Reels with an explosive Shaman draw at the end where his very aggressive mulligan paid off. And, of course, we're heading into this match, Tides of Time versus Brad. And this is kind of one I'm excited for. I always like seeing the new fresh blood in these tournaments getting a chance to really show what they have. against these big names.
Oh yeah, definitely. People who don't know Brad he's on Team Don't Kick My Robot, and he's been doing very well in the Don't Kick My Robot Invitational series, where it's kind of like a King of the Hill in a sense. But what happens is you have an internal King of the Hill first, where you play like whoever's going to be the representative of it, and then the winner challenges that. And Brad's been there week after week after week. His record was something insane, like 15-3, something equivalent to the dominance that we saw Tice do for the King of the Hill for iHeartU, who was dethroned yesterday by Savitz. So congratulations to Savitz. So Brad is a player that's shown that he can compete at the highest level. He's taken down some really big names in that DKMR Invitational. We're talking about big names. Tides of Time is definitely one of them. He's from Team Tempo Storm, and Tides is one of those players where people not only love his deck building, but they also kind of just love his stream. There's a lot of people cheering for Tides and really hoping he does well, and for good reason, because this guy, he's very talented. He's got a lot of strong play. Even in the chat right afterwards, Raynad was even asking Tempo Storm guys, like, what did I do wrong? Did I do anything wrong against Shrifecrow? And a few guys were like, I think you played really well. And then Tides immediately points out, like, oh, you could have done this better. You could have done this better. You could have done this better. So he's one of those guys that recognizes optimal play very quickly. And I think he's never to be underestimated. Definitely one of the strongest players in all of Hearthstone.
Yep. Something else that's interesting to note is that both these players are actually ranking really high on Gosu Gamers. Brad's in 6th right now, and Tides of Time is at 4th.
So yeah, Amaz losing. Does that put him out of first place if he's out in the first round and RDU's able to catch him?
I don't know. That's a good question. We'll have to see how the point system actually ends up working there. But this is a pretty big match for both of these players coming in terms of the Gosu Gamers rankings. So we'll see how this ends up panning out.
Sure. So the series is about to begin. We have mirror matchups with Druid, Warlock, and Hunter for both. Tides putting on the war paint, getting his game face ready, and Brad, he has his Gunners. That is a sponsor of his team's organization, and he's going to start off very nicely with the Wild Growth and an Innervate start.
Yep. Ooh. Having both of those in your opening hand is certainly a blessing as far as Druid is concerned. 2 cards.
Especially against Zoo. If he picks up something like a Keeper of the Grove, how good would that be?
That's where this deck really starts to shine, and this is something I wanted to touch on, is when you're playing against Warlock, Wild Growth is a really good card, but in this matchup, Keeper of the Grove it just shines in both the Zoo matchup and in the Handlock matchup. It's such an important card, where Wild Growth, it's good, it's definitely something you welcome, but I don't think it's as good as having extra. It's like having extra chances at hitting Keeper. Wow, he hits Keeper anyway.
That is a perfect curve. You have the Azure Drake on turn 3. You have the Keeper of the Grove on turn 4. And that is a really weak start for Tides of Time.
He's gonna have a Soulfire for this Azure Drake. But oh my gosh,
he just Brad curves so nicely. Are you kidding me? That's amazing for a start for DTMR Brad.
Yep. This is gonna get disrupted a little bit though. Ooh, Egg comes into the hand. Yep, I think you definitely make this play.
He loses one of the Dark Iron Dwarfs, which I think he can live with, considering that having Defender of Argus also makes it very versatile if your opponent can't deal with it immediately.
Right. And so this is like another tool that's been added to kind of help make the Druid... Oh my gosh, another Innervate. To make the Druid matchup even that much harder for Druid is... Does he silence this Egg with the Keeper?
Honestly, I think so. There's too many ways to activate it, and you're effectively dealing 4 damage instead of 2.
Honestly, right now, I'd like to see him just hero power the 2-1. I think it's really important. This really helps against cards like Dark Iron Dwarf, Abusive Sergeant, and against Defender of Argus.
I think so too.
Yeah, pretty critical draw, all things considered.
I think for Tides to come back to this game, his opponent has to kind of run dry soon. But Brad does have an Azure Drake to keep the card count going, and he has Force of Nature to kind of remove.
Wow, and he keeps drawing big minions. Now, this is another decision to make. I think I would go with the Azure Drake here, but I think there's some real merit to playing Joe and Yeti.
Wow. All right, well, he's picking up lots of answers to whatever his opponent can do. Tides picks up Direwolf Alpha number 2. That's not exactly the most appealing one.
Yeah,
Everything is
I think
just
this.
slightly off curve. That's annoying.
Wow, I don't know what you do here. I think you life tap. Soulfire feels like it's so important, and so does digging the Doomguard.
Huh.
Just neither of these, none of these plays are any good right now.
Yeah. Direwolf Alpha doesn't actually do anything, and Defender of Argus is super weak. And Zoo really is supposed to thrive on these early turns. Like, turn 5 is normally just, like, the turns 1 through 5 are just so powerful from Zoo to stop, but Tides had nothing on turn 2. His turn 3 was kind of mediocre, and now at this stage on turn 5, he's just kind of barely trying to breathe. His opponent, he really hopes his opponent doesn't have something like Swipe to continue putting on pressure. But his opponent's got even more. He's got Force of Nature's Clearance. He's got Argent Commander. He's got Ancient of Lore.
Oh my gosh. This game, I think, is snowballed out of control for Tides. I don't see him putting together a combination of cards that make a significant impact here. Because not only has he lost board control, but his opponent is also at 26 life. So he is really fighting from behind here to make a difference.
At this stage, Brad has everything he needs. He's got every single thing he needs. Karen is cool, but at the same time, you can just pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, Zoo can still climb back. It's not like it's over yet, but this is very difficult to come back from if you're in Tides' position.
He's considering using the Force Nature here. Like, how important are his 2 health minions? But I think you just continue to trade, and then you drop either Karen or you drop the Ancient Allure. I think I'd like to see Karen more. I think Karen's better here also, because if you're in the weird case that your opponent draws a Doomguard, like, there's just no way they swing the game back.
Yeah, I like Ancient of Lore as a stealer as well. At the same time, it draws into so many of the important things. Oh, he's gonna heal immediately. Really?
He's gonna heal his Azure Drake?
Okay. Choosing to heal. I guess in a sense it's like drawing another card off of a minion in a sense. So that way
you draw 4/1 onto the board. So I mean, this is kind of I don't think it really. At the end of the day, I don't think it matters too much. This is a clever play, and it really is sticking it to his opponent. Like, if he draws Savage or Tides is in really bad shape, but he's in really bad shape. I think either way. There's a lot of different ways you could have played that turn, and I think they all kind of lead to the same road.
I agree. I think it's very difficult for Tides to kind of respond immediately. Zoo has to kind of use its minions as its premium spells. I don't really think Tides is running something crazy like the Shadow Flame's Power Overwhelming, although it is a possibility. And he could be top decking
here. Yep, now's the time to go aggressive.
Yeah, even so, Tides still has to get through a Cairn, and Brad actually does represent lethal this next turn. Black Knight is an interesting card to have.
That's a choice that we haven't seen in a while coming into these decks. But I think it's a good one though. If you can force your opponent to taunt up going into these later turns, that can just absolutely blow the game wide open. Yeah, I want to get excited for Tides, but Frank, I just don't see a series of, I don't believe it. I don't see a series of plays that are going to put together a win here.
Yeah, I think you just have to kind of taunt up with the remaining tokens you have. Hope he doesn't have something like Swipe. And just basically hope for the best. But that's all he's kind of relegated to at this stage. All right. Back to Brad. And see what he top decks. Does he get something like Force of Nature to even end the game directly? Wow, Black Knight for himself. Ayo.
Not a bad one. Do you even need to show that, though? I guess your opponent assumes you have it often anyway. So, not really any consequence to showing it.
I think at this point he feels really comfortable. 27 health. Very unlucky for him to kind of fall out from this position. Tides top decks Doomguard, which would have been nice a lot earlier to at least pull him back into the pressure game. But he's kind of missed some really crucial turns to kind of turn the matchup on its head.
Yep. The important thing to consider here is he's got to think about how his opponent responds, because if he doesn't start clearing this board, he's just facing lethal from a very wide range.
Ah, well, Soulfire top deck. Let's see, can that change anything?
He can leave his opponent. He can leave his opponent with just a Harvest Golem.
With a damage golem, you mean, right?
No, he can actually he can soulfire the cairn.
Yep.
And then attack the cairn. So like the cairn will turn into the Bane token, and then he attacks the Bane token. And he leaves his opponent with just the.
Wait, but you
he
can just
can
leave the damage golem. Yep.
I see. You use the Direwolf Alpha. I wasn't considering actually sacrificing your Direwolf Alpha.
Well, you want to limit the damage as much as possible. At the same time, the Harvest Golem represents the same amount of damage as a damage golem, so maybe you don't go for that in respect to it.
Yep. There's a lot of different sequences you can do here to get to this board state.
Okay. Well, let's see if his opponent's be able to draw the lethal he has. He has 7 damage from the hand with Hero Power and Force of Nature. Okay, so he doesn't have it just yet.
Yeah, but no shot of lethal from Tides' side of the board in this coming turn.
I mean,
even Leroy Power Overwhelming wouldn't do it.
Do you feel like you can just comfortably go for face here, or just? I think at that point you don't really have to.
I think you kill the Direwolf Alpha. This is fine as well. Again, it's just like the sequence of plays that he decides to take to get there doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Sure. Optimal play doesn't really matter when you have this much brute force to just kind of shove down your opponent. And I think that's it, right? Tides has enough, Brad has enough right now to burst through with the Force of Nature play, and he's going to take game number 1. Now, granted, he did run out of a lot of gas here at the end, but he just got what he needed. He had an Ancient of War, too, so I guess in the end he wouldn't truly be out of gas because he does have big, fat minions to chew through.
It's important that he doesn't show that Ancient of War, too. It's good news for him.
Definitely. Tides drops the first game, and Brad secures a really important win, taking out that Zoo deck. Again, I'm a little surprised that Tides chose to ran Zoo. It's kind of against his MO because he's known to be a fantastic control player, but all the more reason to bring it to the tournament, don't you think?
Yeah, we touched earlier on how important it is to mix up things like this. And not only is it like a good mix-up, but like at the end of the day, Zoolock is just a different kind of control deck. Like it's controlling your opponent's side of the board through like oppressive minion pressure, instead of controlling it through like a very long and reactive string of spells. So it's not surprising to see him play Zoolock, I don't think. I certainly wouldn't have expected it from him, but once you see him play, it does make a lot of sense. It fits in the way that his decks work. And it's also gotten a lot stronger since the Nax releases. So it's something that he does have to consider. You know, a player, like, there's one thing you can't do is become complacent and then become so arrogant that you just put yourself above playing decks that are just strong. That's not a smart decision for any professional to make. And I think that factors a lot into him playing Zoo.
I completely agree. So Tides is now down to his Druid and his Hunter, and I think we're ready for game number 2 to jump straight into it and find out what happens for Tides. He's going to go with the Druid Mirror, and it seems to be more of the token nature. Okay, the Violet Teacher and the Haunted Creeper to start things off. Now, Brad had pretty much the ideal start, as much as I can't even really imagine a sequence of draws that would have been a little bit better than how he responded to Zoo. Other than maybe grabbing something like a swipe with the spell power of the Azure Drake. But other than that, I think Brad had the ideal start. Let's see how it's going to work out for him this game.
Yeah, stuff like Keeper of the Grove is really important in that matchup. And then, of course, he had Innervate to go with it. So, I mean, that's what you have to... That's part of the combination of cards you need to really take an edge in that matchup. So when you draw them, I think you're doing well. But outside of that, you struggle a lot to keep in the game.
Okay, so Tides does have Black Knight, which is also another really swingy card in this matchup. Definitely a very important thing to kind of know. The second Black Knight?
Yeah, well, 2 decks have 2 Black Knights now.
Oh, I was like, what? There's 2 Black Knights? You totally tripped me out for a second. I was like, what? Okay. Yeah, it seems like he's... I mean, Black Knight makes sense for a Druid, just because how you're able to kind of respond. You're expecting Druid mirrors all the time, too. Yeah. It does kind of perform worse against Miracle, but if you're choosing to ban Miracle anyways...
I think part of his decision to play it, too, is with how much that Sludge Belcher he anticipates getting played. So he wants to have a little bit more counterplay to that as well.
Sure. Makes sense. Gives another way to target something. I think also if you see stuff like Chillwind Yeti, you absolutely know it's not token, which means Black Knight saving in the hand over time can also pay off big dividends.
Right.
Because maybe they run Sunwalkers. Maybe you don't necessarily have to guarantee that they run something like Ancient of War, but you can kind of make that interpretation. Maybe it's good.
Wow, and look at this. Now Tides has his own Innervate draw. But Brad's got Innervate too.
Oh man, if he top decks something like the Black Knight, no.
Well, Karen is still pretty strong here.
Yeah, you force your opponent
Really
to
know
have
about
something
it.
immediately.
Yep.
Then Defender of Argus. That's an interesting card to include in the Druid as well. Huh. Especially the Token Druid, which it kind of gives the ability to just build the board and stuff. But it's just interesting that Defender of Argus is the tech choice here for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, it says a lot about that he wants to take advantage of the fact that he's going to be left with just 2 1/1 tokens or a 2/1 and a 1/1 very often.
Hmm?
He doesn't want him just stranded there on the board. So it feels like a good include. I'm curious how he chose to trim the deck for room with cards like that, or for room for cards like that.
Well, let's see what kind of continues to develop. Brad kind of wondering whether or not he should attack, bring down that life earlier, so that way it makes it really difficult to kind of attack into Cairn.
I think attacking here is a little bit worse. It allows your opponent to get more value out of their Druid of the Claw, and at the same time also allows them to get value out of the Spider immediately.
Also, not to mention, your opponent can kind of just swipe and make it really difficult. Well, Tides does end up top decking that swipe.
Wow. This game is getting crazy.
Yeah, so he does have an answer to it. Keep in mind, he still also has his Violet Teacher in the back pocket. But I think picking up immediate kill on Cairn with the Defender of Argus is too good to pass up.
Yep. This is a pretty big board he's put together. With just a couple of cards. I think you definitely attack this Harvest Golem. Or the Damage Golem, rather.
Same difference, honestly. Sometimes it's like the same thing anyways. Harvest Golem is just so sticky and annoying. And now as the tables have turned, how often do the Harvest
Defender
Golem...
of Argus.
Yeah.
Huh. Of all the cards that we were considering, this is why it's in here. I mean, obviously he's played with this before and has been in this spot. He's not just like throwing this in his deck and being like, I think this would be good. There's a reason that this Defender of Argus is in here and it's shining at this turn. And Brad, no swipe. That's a tough spot to be in.
Swipe would have been beautiful.
Right.
Absolutely beautiful. He would have been able to go for a full board clear. But he's going to have to use a Wrath and see what he draws off of that. And even so, these Haunted Creepers have done so much work. They're able to kind of force this Bane into a bad trade and kind of follow it up with more damage. So he gets an Ancient of Lore with the draw. So he's got pretty good card quality in his hand.
This is tough.
All right, well, back to Tides.
I think there's some merit to just attacking your opponent there. He knows his opponent's playing token, so the thing that he's thinking about is how to keep his opponent's board under control. And that's where the difference is coming in. Wow, second Ancient, but that's not very strong right now.
It will be though for the following turns if you can kind of put Ancients back to back together.
The Violet Teacher's not that bad here either, because it forces your opponent to use 2 mana, so it's throwing off their mana a bit. So it's keeping him off of a 5 mana play if he wants to take out this Violet Teacher.
Yeah, and you obviously save the coin right there, so people can say, like, oh, you can clear it, but you want to have really powerful back-to-back turns.
Right. His goal is to keep his opponent from playing a 5-drop or a 6-drop here, by threatening to have a lot of value come from this Violet Teacher.
Okay, well, Brad will play his keeper.
Yep. This is actually a pretty strong play from Tides here, too. As a result of this, he gets the first Ancient on the board, and I think the first person to get an Ancient Lore on the board typically has an advantage.
Oh, absolutely. These power cards in mirror matchups, whether it's the Ancient of Lores, whether it's like the Savannah Highmanes and Mid-Range Hunter, they just dictate the entire pace of the rest of the game. Things just get snowball. You have to respond to it, and they get to choose the terms of which they battle.
Yep. Ooh, Lotheb. That's going to prevent some big swipe turns from happening, potentially.
Lotheb and Token Druid, by the way, is so nasty on turn 8. Just how if you're able to set up a board, because then they can't really spend stuff to remove, and then you have the combo afterwards. Like, it's just so disgusting. Like, I try playing it a lot, and it just fits so naturally. Like, I know Lotheb obviously fits in a lot of decks, but just kind of iterating how powerful it is for a common use, and how your opponent's supposed to respond to it, especially in these mirrors. They're just, like, Lotheb is lights out.
Do you risk this 5/10 here? It feels really risky. I mean, we can we can see that he's got Black Knight, but he's got to weigh his options. Like how powerful is a silence against this? How powerful is a Black Knight against this? Can my opponent just push through it? Can I afford to get Black Knighted this turn? Like I don't think he can. This is one of those turns where it feels like if he gets Black Knight, he's going to end up falling way behind.
Yep. Oh, but he's hovering over it.
Oh,
that's going to be devastating.
Hard
to say.
Okay. Yeah, it's really tough.
Because now the problem still presents itself the following turn.
Yep.
Where his opponent has the second Ancient of Lore.
Well, as your board becomes a little bit stronger, you're able to take a few more hits on these swings because your board can be resilient. But if you have just nothing on the board, like getting a big swing turn against you is, I mean, that's what spells lights out.
Okay, second Ancient of Lore coming down for Tides. He draws double keeper.
I don't know how you play this turn. Like how important is 5 damage on your opponent's face? Because you've drawn so many cards now that you can just represent lethal and combo.
And force your opponent to trade. Give your
so when you make a play like this, it does give your opponent a little bit better of idea of how range you have. And the other thing too is it's opening him up to just being wrathed and then traded. And I feel like that's much better for his opponent right now because he's playing a more aggressive oriented deck. Tides is.
Just kind of realizing that Tides has like a pair of everything, pretty much. Pair of 5 drops, double swipe, double keeper. All right, well, Tides will have to also deal with the Argent Commander, but he does have the Keepers of the Grove immediately to answer once again. So he's got these ways to respond very efficiently. And not like Brad's been able to kind of push back and threaten any kind of combo. So I think Tides is still feeling pretty decent.
This is actually some pretty clever deck building here from Brad, too. He's got 5/10s with Argent Commanders, and one of his goals in this Druid Mirror, I think, is to bait out these Keepers of the Grove after he's gotten value from these Argent Commanders, so that way he can more safely land Ancient of War and isn't facing down the threat of a silence.
Huh. Interesting. So the hybrid actually ends up working out so that it fools your opponent to using removal that they should have used otherwise. Okay.
Because it's so easy to keep her right here.
Yeah,
and rightfully so. He should be keepering here. I think this is a great spot to keep her. None of his other plays look too appealing. I actually don't mind making a 3/2 here either.
There is this case though that Token Druid has to continue to start building the board from this state though. You have so many cards. At the same time, he hasn't drawn a single piece to combo, so it's not like he can. Ooh, second keeper. So it's not like he can keep just playing really reactive.
The second keeper, right? If he uses the second keeper here, I almost certainly Brad's going to play the 5/10. I think.
Oh, and he does double keeper. But then we also know what that Ancient of War is going to provoke from Tides. Then how does Brad respond to that?
He's got a couple of options though. He may actually still be reluctant to use this Ancient. Wow, he's going to be.
He's playing it super safe.
Yeah, I'll say.
Very control-oriented. Swipe top deck allows him to clear.
I don't know if he's still going to use it, though. These spots are so weird. Like, neither of them really have, like, strong plays. It's just, like, trading that's happening on the board.
Yeah,
I do agree you should use it as 2/1. I don't know if using the keeper there is better than using the swipe, though. It probably is. You just want the extra body on the board, I think.
All right, we'll see what Tide's able to get. He top decks Savage Roar. He has double swipe to kind of follow this up. No, instead he just low theft. Low theft to take control of the board and force his opponent to kind of do something besides just play reactive with spells. Does it come out now?
I don't know. I still think I feel like he still feels safe paying life to clean up this board with cards like Argent Commander, but Argent Commander's so unexciting when your opponent's got a 2/4 already. He's trying so hard to not get blown out by Black Knight. His instincts are just spot on here.
A 9-mana swipe. Oh, wow. No, there's no way you can utilize swipe effectively here. There's no way.
I don't think you swipe here.
Certainly not. Alternatively, anything you kind of drop as a minion that can't immediately fight back, other than this Argent Commander, will just kind of get destroyed immediately. So if you drop Drake, it doesn't really improve your position that much at all. Because you can't follow it up with anything else. A BGH coming out. I mean, it makes sense. Token Druids don't often run anything worth using the BGH
Oh,
for.
wow, look at this. I feel like you've committed to that plan already.
Okay, a moment of indecision from Brad. So he ends up picking up the immediate value and then forcing Lotheb to kind of make a hard decision.
If Tides draws spell power here. Wait a minute. 14 plus 7. Oh!
That's 21. If he had to innervate, he had the power of the wild for the lethal.
Wow. How does he make a push this turn? Because he's got to consider his opponent's Savage Roars as well.
Sure. You do have a swipe, and you can deal with it. You also just can use a Force of Nature for a very logical clear, and be able to kind of deal with everything very efficiently.
I think this is very reasonable.
Okay. Putting more presence on the board, and yeah, basically keep pushing. Force your opponent to kind of use other stuff. And I think the Lotheb, the longer he stays on, it's fine. That Force of Nature.
This is also still lethal next turn if his opponent doesn't taunt up or clear this board.
That's right. That's right. He has a swipe and the Savage Roar.
Yep.
Oh, but he does have that spell power swipe, and that is huge.
Yep, that was the only downside of this play was spell power swipe.
But his opponent can kind of keep responding to it, though.
Yeah, Tide should be... I think he should be charging this turn.
I think so, too.
Yep.
You are the token druid. You are trying to be the aggressor.
I was going to go with Big Game Hunter instead. This is also really nice. It puts a lot of pressure on the board. Oh, this is a more hidden lethal, too, actually. Because now he still has lethal. He's still threatening lethal next turn.
Oh my
goodness.
Druid
of the Claw Charge and then Savage Roar. Yeah, this is actually...
That's really clever once again. That's really intelligent. I think Tide's making a really strong back-to-back plays. I think Brad, at this point, he saw a Force of Nature, but, I mean, how confident do you feel against it? Because you just... Like, if you show a Force of Nature that willingly, maybe he has a second one.
Using Wild Growth. Yeah, he's still fearing Black Knight. He wants a way to play around Black Knight.
Huh?
Again, his instincts are just spot on, but he's just not getting it.
Cenarius, that's pretty good. So now you can put up 2 taunts.
That's only 12 points of damage from Tides.
Tides needs a way to kind of respond to it.
Wow.
But do you play the... Oh, I guess he's going for the Black Knight right here.
You don't have an option, I don't think. You have to make, I mean, you've committed so hard to making a push at this point. You've got to make something happen.
Sure. And
I think
at this stage...
enough, actually, though.
Huh?
This might still be enough.
Even if you play the Black Knight? Or if you play Ancient of Lore after the Black Knight?
We'll just have to count it. So 4, 10, 1, 2. He's going to be a little bit short, I think. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wow, I think he's going to be 1 damage off lethal.
Oh, don't say it like that. Don't say it like that, Admirable.
Okay, so Harvest Golem and Big Game Hunter can trade into this 5/10. And then he's got 4 plus 1 plus 6.
So basically, Force of Nature is still the Doctor ordered. Wait.
Wait, no, he's got a hero power too.
Wait.
He's got 4 plus 6 plus 1 plus 1.
That's 12. Last time I checked.
Oh my gosh. He's counting it up. I think that's perfect lethal.
I think so as well. I think so. That's exactly the push through. The Wrath, you don't really even need to. Wait, hold on. One more time. So you have the 9.
Yeah, that's lethal.
Plus the 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have the lethal. So Ty just needs to see it and piece it together.
Oh my gosh.
Right. What to do? Oh no, does he not see it?
Oh my gosh.
Does he not see it?
Tides, you have to count it. Oh my gosh, Tides.
Not like this. You can't miss it.
Oh, I think he sees it.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh, he sees it.
There we go. Well, and you can even just use Wrath if you want to. You can just Wrath for 3. You can push through the Harvest Golem, and it's the same consequence either way.
Okay. The point is he's got lethal.
Yeah. Actually, with the Wrath, he's got lethal way covered. He's got 14. So he's able to kind of push through. I don't know what he was spending a lot of time thinking about. Maybe trying to psych out his opponent or something. But
When you have time, you might as well just count it, because if you miscount in a spot like this, you're really going to regret it. So
Absolutely.
I can never fault anyone for taking their time in a tournament match to make sure they count it right.
Down to the last second of the rope.
Yep.
Just making sure. And Tides has evened up the series and taken out the Druid deck from Brad. Now keep in mind that these guys are mirroring the classes, but by no means are they mirroring the same exact decks. Brad still also has his Warlock deck and a Hunter. So Brad will have to make a choice about what's going to happen next. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and reset ourselves for game number 3 between Tides of Time and Brad. Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championship for Hearthstone North America qualifiers. It's Game 3 between Tides of Time versus Brad, where the best of 5 has now reset to a best of 3. Brad is now the one on the choice. He can select between his Warlock as well as his Hunter deck, and we're going to find out what's going to be chosen in just a second. But real quick, it really kind of depends on what Brad really has prepared. So if he has the Zoo, I feel like he can go with that. But if he has the Handlock, I would say that he maybe even goes with Hunter from this point on.
It's kind of tough, honestly. If he has, because one of the things he wants to avoid is he wants to avoid Handlock versus Hunter. That's not a very good matchup. So actually, probably if it's Handlock, I probably would be going with Handlock here. It just kind of sucks to be in that position. But if it's Zoo, it doesn't. I think it doesn't really matter if he goes with Hunter or with Warlock. I think both of these decks are very strong versus Druid. But if he does have Zoo, something else he wants to do is he wants Zoo to fight against the Hunter, so he might just go with Hunter here outright.
Fair enough, fair enough. I believe the mulligans are ready, so let's jump into the board and see what's going on. With Tides of Time versus Brad, winner gets the last semifinal spot in the winner's bracket. The loser will drop down to face Reels in the lower bracket. Okay, so it is the Hunter.
Yep. I like going with Hunter here. This tells me his last deck is probably Zoo.
Okay. Now, Hunter versus the Token Druid still can feel like you're fighting against something similar to Zoo, where every turn they're building up something. It becomes a little bit increasingly more difficult. You still want something like Unleash the Hounds to kind of respond to your opponent. You mulligan Freezing Trap and you get back Freezing Trap. Such is life with Hearthstone, especially with something like Hunter. Man.
It's not the worst pickup in the world, but he's fishing for something else. I like keeping the Buzzard here because one of the, again, as you were talking about, one of the key cards is Unleash the Hounds, so he wants to have access to Buzzard Unleash basically as quickly as possible.
Definitely. Web Spinner also presents quite the conundrum of what it could represent and what it could threat.
Look at these little spiders. Looks like a spider deck now.
Yeah, I thought this was about beasts and the wild.
This is always just such a sweet part, the web spinner draw.
Maybe a 3-drop of some kind. Maybe like a... Oh, it gets the Jungle Panther. I was going to say something crazy like the Silverback Patriarch, but this is much better.
Yeah, that is much better. Wow. Oh, and a keeper picked up from Tides.
That's nice.
Brad's going to feel really safe behind this freezing trap, and that keeper's going to do a lot of work. Wow! Savannah Highmane!
Okay, well, he can't play that for 2 more turns, but that is a very important card to have. So you bait out the keeper, so that way he can't use it on the Savannah Highmane. Seems like a good game plan.
It looks like he wants a tracking first, which I would find it very shocking to tracking here. I think he's just freezing trap hero power and attack him for 5. It's such an aggressive play, and you get to use your tracking next turn to like find a shuffle 4-drop like a Houndmaster. I think it's really oversighted to be using that here. Oh my gosh, he finds a bow though.
Yeah, and the bow he can pick up immediate value with, and the fact that he's able to use Freezing Trap to extend its life with more charges and durability. So it's all worked out. Maybe that's exactly what he wanted.
Is he considering not attacking with his Tiger?
At this stage, I'm not exactly sure, because Brad has shown that he's willing to play around almost everything. But I like the game plan of baiting out a Keeper of the Grove.
Wow, he's just going everything to the dome.
So ham. That's crazy.
Holy guacamole.
Man, what does that kind of telecommunicate?
I guess that he just wants to punch him to death. Jeez, Alou.
Well, Tides also has the Violet Teacher coin Power of the Wild the following turn to potentially do some good stuff.
I don't really understand that at all. It's so like against its game plan, I feel like.
I wonder if he's trying to sell that he's playing aggro. No, there's no way. I don't think so. Maybe there's some kind of the next level stuff where you sell what your opponent's doing, but
Wow,
it just seems at this point Tides is just going to respond with a very powerful swing and basically relegate to the point where his opponent has to draw something like Unleash the Hounds to deal with this immediately.
Yep, and this is sort of the consequence of playing overly aggressive at times, though, is that you can find yourselves in these sorts of positions.
Well, he still might be able to get himself out here. Flare can still keep him alive. Okay, well, he's going to go with Savannah Highmane and immediately trade. Fair enough. All is well.
So he's got a decent board position, but his opponent gets to trade back the Savannah Highmane for basically exactly how he wants to do it.
Right.
He's going to be Keeper to Silence and then use a Wrath and the token to follow up. So I think that Tides feels very comfortable here. Brad's down to 2 cards. And Tides is still at 20, and he's got an Ancient Allure in his hand and plenty of gas to keep the pedal to the metal.
Yep.
I think this aggressive play from Brad may have been a little bit too much. I'm all for aggressive play, but this was a lot. That's the combo he needs.
When Admirable's telling you that maybe it's a little too much aggro, you know maybe you overstepped a little bit.
I mean, I'm a fan of attack in the face pretty much every opportunity you get. But I mean, he sacrificed so much to do it in this position, and when he, especially, it's not even that like it's not that I just always like to attack my opponent's face. It's that I like to put my opponent in pressured situations. But when your opponent is going into 4 open mana and you're leaving your board vulnerable against a very valuable expendable minion, it's not the kind of position that you want to be in. And so now that he's in this spot, he's very committed to continuing that path, because every single step of the way that he's battling to make these cards back up, he's finding himself in a spot where even if he gets back to even, now he's at even. He's not ahead of the game anymore. So these couple of draws panning out really well.
Wow.
I think Leok is a pretty good one. But again, Tides has got swipe. He's got everything he needs to just clean these positions up.
That is true. It allows him to answer very efficiently. Still, like, Brad doesn't have to use his Hunter's Mark. He doesn't have to. How much do you value the charge on the bow?
I don't know. I think it's like, how many more traps are in your deck? Like, do you really...
I like keeping Hunter's Mark. It's very versatile. You have stuff like Stone Tusk Bora, which normally doesn't actually do anything unless it just pushes for that little extra damage or enable kill command. You actually have the flexibility of both. I like saving Hunter's Mark here.
I like saving it too, but it's not like a. I'm not thrilled to save it. That's for sure.
Okay, back to
Hedging his bets
sides.
against swipe. I like hedging his bets against swipe.
Yeah.
But again, now that he's put in this position, like how does he recover? Now he has nothing left. He has nothing left to gain an advantage. It's just he's just got like 4 singular good cards.
Well, he's got tracking. Maybe he can top deck something really nice and then pair it with tracking.
He needs to fetch something like Savannah Highmane, I think.
Animal Companion. That actually can bite him in the butt if it's Misha. Lotheb and Houndmaster are 2 choices that he can also go with, but I think Lotheb's too good to pass up relative to what you want to do to your opponent.
Yep.
Lotheb and Animal Companion here.
I think you have to Animal Companion. He's going to Animal Companion first. Ooh, if he makes a safe minion. Actually, it makes a lot of sense to Animal Companion first, because if you roll this, now you can consider kill commanding. I like that a lot.
Okay. Ooh, it's still, you know, it's more defensive versus the more aggressive approach. And all of a sudden, Brad shifted gears completely. It was just a couple of turns ago where he just went all face with everything he had.
He might have gotten blinded by the Jungle Panther. It was such an easy 4 points of damage. But now I think it's just kind of rough. He didn't want to get blown out by Keeper of the Grove, but he left himself in a position where a lot larger range of things.
Sure.
Ended up being a problem.
Second Eaglehorn bow, so he does end up running 2. And Brad's kind of just expending all of his resources here in order to kind of do what he has to do. But Hunter's usually put on this spot. I wonder if Brad is also playing like a finisher like Leroy in his deck. Keep in mind that Brad and Tides, or actually just in general, Brad has also kind of hit a lot of members of Tempest Storm recently, so they've been discussing a lot of his decks back even at the Prismatic Cup. So maybe they have a lot of that intel. Innervate's not what you want to see post-Lotheb.
Black Knight is a 6-mana Chill and Yeti. Not too bad.
Not
Still
bad,
4/5.
plus he used both Animal Companions. He can't really Houndmaster at this point on what's on the board. So I think you just Black Knight here for the power.
Ooh.
Wow, that Hunter's Mark with the Unleash will clean up everything, though.
Yeah, I think you got a Hunter's Mark here.
Yep. Hunter's Mark, you still have Deadly Shot to take out one last big threat, say it's another Ancient of Lore.
Definitely save the Deadly Shot. Deadly Shot is not worth a 1/1 in it. No, this is... Oh, no. No, your opponent's going to hero power it. Your opponent's going to hero power it. Let it go.
The 1 damage isn't worth it. It depends on what his outs are, right? I guess it does.
I think it matters if your opponent plays another 5/5 here. You're just gonna you're gonna hate the fact that you used your Deadly Shot over your Hunter's Mark.
I think Hunter's Mark is it's too much to pass up. All right, well, Tides. Let's see what he top decks here. He gets the Haunted Spider, so I think he kind of has to respond immediately with Force of Nature. Doesn't want to kind of leave his opponent anyway to kind of top deck that lethal.
Yep. Brad's actually found himself ahead, though. It's not by a very significant margin, but he's slightly ahead.
Do you play this as a 3/2, kind of push out damage, or do you you hero power to kind of gain life?
It's probably... I think it's probably better to hero power.
Well, one thing's for sure.
It's not like a significant margin. I don't think he could just do both too. Like how much value is he going to get from Innervate?
That's true. Unless he top decks Ancient of Lore, that's the only way he kind of benefit off of it. Okay. Well, he's gonna just save the Innervate and see if that pays off for him. Yep. Meanwhile, that Deadly Shot is looking pretty bad, but a top deck Oasis Snapjaw isn't so bad.
Ironically, Oasis Snapjaw is actually really good here. You just need something to stay on the board.
Azure Drake is nice for Tides. And a second Force of Nature, which allows him to trade.
He's got lethal next turn.
But then, if his opponent top decks Leroy, his opponent has lethal.
Oh my gosh.
This is a gamble for Tides either way. If Brad has a Leroy, he has lethal.
I don't think that you can use a Force of Nature on a turtle. I don't think you can do that.
God, how miserable do you feel if you have to do that, though? Doesn't even fully kill it. Tides is going for it.
I would not use. I would go for it. I 100% agree with this. He's actually considering suiciding this spider in to get more tokens for
the power of the wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a smart consideration. I like that he's at least thinking about it.
Freezing trap for Brad. Deadly shot could be MVP here.
He needs this deadly shot.
Oh my god. He's gonna leave it up to a 50-50.
Oh my gosh. I don't think he has an option.
Oh, the moment.
Oh jeez.
He's hovering over it. He knows.
No!
That's it.
Oh my gosh. And
Wow.
the freezing trap. The freezing trap's gonna save him.
Wait, let's see.
Because this would still be lethal. It would be 9 + 2. The freezing trap saved him.
You're right. The freezing trap
Oh
is
my
exactly
gosh.
what ordered. He's gonna power the wild first too. On its creatures, but then if so, then he needs to.
He knows he's playing explosive trap, but now he's thinking about if it's misdirection or if it's freezing trap. What happens? How do I decide to trade afterwards?
Wow, I'm still kind of blown away that like this deadly shot has kept him in the game once again.
Also, 1 damage off lethal too. Like he can attack with the spider first, put 9 to his opponent's face, then hero power.
Savage roar! That's it. He just attacks, triggers it. He interrupts out the savage roar.
Wait! Time! Check the trap. What?
Oh my god!
Is happening?
Wait. No! Tides! He had innervate combo!
Wait, are we...
man!
No,
What just happened? No! Oh, wow. He gives his opponent 1 out. He's got 7 damage. He just needs to draw 3 more. He could draw with another kill command or something like that.
Oh
Leroy finished. Oh, I think Tides just realized what he did. That is bad news. What if Brad top decks the way to win? This series could be completely reinvented. No, he gets Savannah High main, so it doesn't matter. But oh my god, that was so close. Wow, way to kind of make it interesting, Tides. Bravo. If that was what you were going for, you are a true maestro, the ultimate BM.
Well, I think
risky.
Tides is getting frustrated throughout the course of that game a little bit with how things are working out, and he needs to slow down and not let his emotions get the better of him. I know that Tides can play emotional from time to time, but that's crippled more than one competitor before. You have to keep a control on your emotions and don't let them dictate the pace of your play. Slow down, think through your spots. You just got a game. Honestly, he gets pretty lucky there to not lose the game after he lets his opponent have a turn.
Sure, and Hunter can find a way to generate that damage.
Very easily.
He can. So
just gotta slow down. Take a deep breath. Namaste. Get your center, focus your chi, and move forward.
Sure. I think he really thought it was explosive trap to a certain degree. He already saw a freezing trap, right? So he thought maybe second freezing trap is unlikely. Try to go for the calculated play, because most likely it's 1 freezing, 1 explosive. But he hit second freezing trap. Regardless, we're moving on to what's going to be game number 4. Brad will have to rely on his Warlock deck. And we're going to jump straight into the board and find out what's happening between these two players. Now, I think Tides kind of has settled down, because at the very end, he sat back in his chair realizing he almost lost. So he's like, okay, still can do this.
Yeah. Take it. You got to slow down. That's a spot that you cannot put yourself in over and over again.
Now, Tides picks up 2 very important cards, Innervate and the Keeper of the Grove. Brad's going to be playing the Zoo deck. And that kind of start with the Keeper that allows you to go 3 for 1 sometimes is your ticket to stabilize the early game. Giving you enough time to kind of put out really important creatures. Violet Teacher, so that way you can keep trading efficiently.
These are some pretty solid hands too. This Zoo hand looks a little bit weird, but honestly, I don't think it's that bad. Like I think a 4/2 is just totally fine in this matchup. If your opponent doesn't have a keeper, it's just a 3-mana 4-power minion.
Sure. I mean, it kind of fits what Zoo wants to do, anyways. Just put out low-cost minions.
Tides returning the favor in this Druid versus Zoo matchup. Is his Innervate keeper going to be enough turn the
Oh,
table.
that's right. How
Yep.
the tables have turned. Puts out the Nerubian egg, which is great with his, excuse me, I'm losing the term, the abusive sergeant.
I think here you just make sure you take out this this Argent Squire.
I think so as well. The Savage Roar taking out the Nerubian egg ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it's better to wait. His opponent still has to activate the egg on his own time. Wow, he draws a second abusive sergeant for it. That can be pretty significant.
Still gonna bide his time though.
He wants to play around swipe when he does it this way.
Yeah.
Because if he makes the other play, it goes way into swipe.
But now Keeper of the Grove gets to pick up another piece of value, which is really important. And he also has a good 5-drop too. He has Druid of the Claw. Wow. But he does have... he can play out his whole hand here.
I think he's got to take care of this Violet Teacher.
I think so. But how much are you overkilling him by?
I mean, you can't let that get out of control, though.
Yeah, the Power of the Wilds with the tokens represent way too much. Do you value your life tap, though? I guess maybe you draw something maybe even better.
I don't... Well, what do you want to discard here? Would you rather discard the Owl or the Abusive Sergeant? And that's really the only question you ask yourself. If you'd rather discard Abusive Sergeant, you Soulfire first, so that way you can have a 66% chance to discard one of the Abusive Sergeants and keep the Owl, and go from there. So he is valuing the Owl more, and I'm curious why.
Oh, a top deck swipe first.
Wow!
That's really nice. Reset the board once again.
29.
And, you know, Brad had the opportunity to maybe make a really big defender play, but now instead it's completely reset. That gives him the ability to play this Druid of the Claw and continue back to
oh my gosh,
what the Jews can do. This is really
he's
good
got
for
Defender
Tides.
in his hand, and Tides just drew Black Knight. This match may be crumbling apart.
It's just revenge, you know why? Because this is exactly what Tides felt like when he was playing the Zoo and Brad was the Druid player. It was like every single answer that Druid drew was the perfect response to what Zoo was throwing at him.
Yeah. I think you have to drop this in taunt mode, right? The Druid of the Claw?
Yeah, I think if you put it in charge, it's too much.
Oh, my gosh. He undervalues the Black Knight because his opponent's playing Zoo. So it's like pretty rare that your opponent gets taunted up in this matchup. Honestly, I don't think this isn't like a bad play. Honestly, it's probably the right play at the end of the day.
True, fair enough.
It's tough to rely on you. It's tough to think your opponent is going to taunt up minions in a Zoo deck. Like it's going to happen sometimes, but it's not going to happen very often.
And you also don't really get much value even if they do drop something like a Voidwalker, right? You're just trying to get ahead of it so that way you can punish whatever comes out.
Yeah,
so it makes sense. It's just sometimes you just want to see the Black Knight ruin people's days.
It's important to get the 4-5 on the board at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay.
Especially in a matchup where you're constantly struggling from behind.
Brad draws a Knife Juggler. He can unload.
Changing things.
Let's see. Does he get a really good juggle?
I think he should life tap here before anything. Unless he intends to play his whole hand, he should definitely life tap first.
I think the Iron Beak still represents something really nice that you can kind of save.
Is he going to Void Tear? He's going to Void Tear just the Creeper?
Huh. Wait. If Tides top decks an Innervate, though, he has combo. So that could just end the game. But, you know, he's going to try to go for this double juggle on the Ancient of Lore, potentially, or to the face. Either one is nice.
He wants to hit face.
Oof. Wow.
Wait,
three juggles to the
Did all three juggles hit the Ancient?
Yep. All three juggles hit that Ancient.
Did Brad already attack with the Defender of Argus?
He did. So there was no way. Yep. So he actually did that out of order.
Just waited on the Defender of Argus and killed the Ancient. Oh my gosh.
That's really unfortunate. That's too bad.
Wow, Tides is in a really peculiar spot too.
He's gonna try to push for a lethal.
I actually really like this the Savage right here.
Okay.
Oh well, that's not what I thought he was gonna do.
I thought he was gonna set himself up to combo next turn.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. This he's still set up to combo though.
Yeah.
At this point, he's like this is a two-pronged attack. where he's starting to choke his opponent out of the game, and he's starting to threaten lethal at the same time. But the
Yep.
lethal is so much more hidden when he uses this Savage Roar, so his opponent isn't thinking that he always has combo, so that may influence his play as well. So a lot of different things are coming into effect here. It's a little bit less aggressive. Tides is he wants to control the board,
Yeah.
so he's giving himself a lot of options at this point.
I think it's correct. As the token druid, as much as you like being aggressive, against decks like these, you are the control player.
Yeah.
All right, Nerubian Egg. Now he goes for the trade. And once again, jockeying for position. Keeper of the Grove off the top. That's also very nice to silence this Nerubian Egg.
I think he charges here. I mean, you have to charge. You just have lethal next turn.
Yeah. And not to mention you have minions, so he's forced to clear. He already played a Defender of Argus. He's going for versatility, though. The Harvest Golem allows the... It just represents, again, another sticky minion, so that way you can get combo off. How does Brad respond? He has a Defender of Argus, which is very big. Especially... Oh my god, wait. The Soulfire allows him to go for a full board clear? Holy crap.
And protect himself.
Oh my god,
gosh.
that is so disgusting. Are you serious?
Wow.
Whoa-wee.
What just happened?
I think Zoo just showed why Zoo is so powerful.
He just went from nothing to 3 taunts and a full board, basically.
Oh my god, what a crazy swing. See, what is Tides able to get here?
Ooh,
Well, he does get a Wrath. Force of Nature could be used to clear. He wants to kind of minimize damage as well.
Yeah,
He can kind of put... I think... what's up?
I think this Druid of the Claw is going to go taunted.
I think so. Again, force your opponent to kind of play inefficient. But
Yeah,
then
this
if
is
Brad top decks him like Doomguard,
Oh my gosh. Does
I
Brad
think-
have Black Knight?
he has power overwhelming.
Oh my
Double
gosh.
power
2
overwhelming.
power overwhelmings.
What? Okay, so
Oh,
he's going to
dear.
lose some of his taunters. Now, keep in mind that Brad still is a little bit on the clock because he's can't just keep tapping freely every single turn.
Right.
Oh, man, if Tide's able to kind of respond to this.
think
He's going to use the force of
gonna-
nature here. He realizes he's kind of on tight ropes.
Oh, he's not going to combo.
No, I think he's just going to go for a classic strangle. There's no need to kind of like rush it. You know, you go for the full bow clear
Keep the
on
Harvest Golem.
Zoo.
Okay.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. What does Brad do? Now, Power Overwhelming is really bad usually with an empty board and a Doomguard top deck. Unless he has something like Leroy. But he's out of his Soulfires. A Doomguard top deck!
Oh my gosh. He's out of Soulfires, right?
He's going to tap himself, and I think that puts him in range, though. Doesn't that put him in range?
3. 3 plus 6 plus 1.
Oh my god, that's 10 damage.
Oh my gosh.
Force of Nature for Tides!
Wow,
This
that
series
is
is
a
over.
huge draw.
This series is over, but it was super close and down to the wire. As Tides, he didn't look very smiley when that happened because that was too close for comfort. Man, Brad almost won a game that you would say is almost unwinnable. It's very difficult to come back from that, but Tides played his hand very well. So I had to use Force of Nature when I had to, but he got a second one, and that was exactly what he needed.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for the Druid to be in if they don't have a Keeper of the Grove. And if they have Innervate Keeper of the Grove, they think they have a pretty significant edge. But outside of that, they're usually fighting at a disadvantage. So what's fair is fair. Both players had Innervate Keeper in the Druid Zoo matchup. So, I mean, a credit to both players here. But I think in the Hunter game that Brad got a little bit ahead of himself, and I would have liked to see him take it a lot slower and try to control the game.
Absolutely. You know, doing a quick post-mortem as we pull up the brackets. One more time, I just kind of have to kind of commend the way both players were being very good, intelligent, playing around a lot of stuff. Brad also, again, you know, he was bringing in these decks and he built them very intelligently. You made a comment about that. I think he brought a lot of cool preparation. It's kind of unfortunate that he had to drop here, but once more, we had a pretty epic series that went down to the wire. That was a 3-1, but it felt like a 3-2 with how tightly contested everything was.
Yep.
Certainly. All right, let's pull up the brackets and take a look at what's going on here. We have our last two series set for today, Firebat versus Strifecrow. and Alchemix versus Tides of Time. Those two are guaranteed to happen, and then the following days we'll have the rest of the brackets filled out accordingly. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, round number 2 of the winner's bracket for the WEC NA. Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championship. We got a few minutes to kind of reset and rack our brains and get ready and prepared for Firebat versus Strifecrow, the round number 2 of the winners portion for the WEC Qualifiers North America. If you're just joining us, Well, you're in time for the second half of the entire round of today. We're going to be doing the winners bracket round 2 with Striker versus Firebat. Then we have Ties of Time versus Alchemist. And the winner of that gets a guaranteed top 3 placing where they'll play on day number 3, which is very nice because you don't have to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow is a stressful day for a lot of these players. We're going to have some eliminations. Maz versus Reynad tomorrow start things off. Then Reels and Brad. A list of killers, lots of fun games, but I haven't been doing it alone. I've had Admirable helping me and analyzing the games along with me. How you been doing, Nathan?
I've been doing fantastic. I'm feeling fresh. Got myself some water. 2 more rounds a day. And then, of course, 5 more tomorrow, and then 3 more on Sunday. I'm looking forward to the whole weekend.
Good for you, man. Good for you. And I think people have really been appreciating these games as well, so make sure to give a shout to 2p.com for all the involvement they have. Once again, shout out to Milk and Cindy for being able to put out great broadcasts so far, and pretty much as much problem-free as you can expect. Hope to expect from an online broadcast. Now, once again, we want to kind of cover the format in case anybody's joining and wondering what's going to happen. We have 4 decks where you can ban 1, and it's a best of 5 from that point on. The top 2 players from each region will qualify for the offline event in the first week of September, where they'll play for $62,000. So you can see it as a $2,000 prize pool for each player that kind of qualifies, the top 2 here. Now, let's go ahead and go into the ban screens and get prepared for Strifeco versus Firebat and figure out what these guys have prepared for each other. Firebat, a big student of what his opponents has. Very impressive spreadsheet of what his opponents can play and how he's going to be able to combat it. Now, both players have banned Miracle Rogues, so we have a great start to the series right off the bat. And Firebat looks like the only difference between him and Strifeco seems to be the Shaman versus the Paladin for Strifeco.
Yeah, 2 very different stances, I think, in how these players are choosing to approach the match. I think Paladin actually has a pretty good matchup versus Handlock. And also versus Zoo, but it's a little bit more of consistency, consecration along with Wild Pyromancer and Equality. Is how you're looking to clean things up instead of with spot removal spells like Hex and Earthshock and Lightning Bolt and the like. And Shaman does have the sweep potential, but I think it's a little bit weaker against matchups like Miracle and like Hunter. And since those decks have been kind of finding their way back into these tournament lineups, it makes a lot of sense to be playing Paladin. The other thing, too, is that Paladin, where it was really lacking was its 5-drop, where Shaman traditionally kind of has some okay 5-drops. So the fact that Sludge Belcher's there now gives Paladin that little extra oomph where Shaman is still kind of on the fence because it really wants to spell power in the extra card, but there's a lot to be said about how good Sludge Belcher is just as a card of its own. So they're very similar stylistic approaches, and then at that point it's a matter of which player believes that which strategy is stronger. So here, obviously, Firebat thinks that Shaman is stronger, and Strifeco thinks that Paladin is stronger. I'm going to be curious to see how these matchups actually collide and pan out.
It seems to be a running theme amongst Cloud9 that think that Paladin is very viable, and in fact, one of the best classes to run. And it's not necessarily about what's best. It's about what lineup can be the best. You bring a field of 4 decks that can cover the metagame, and you have answers to everything. And it's not necessarily, excuse me, that the Paladin is great versus everything, but it's great enough at whatever decks you're kind of missing, and you can cover in that respect and be very versatile. So don't mistake the fact that Paladin is weak or it's too strong. It's the fact that it's viable, and that these Cloud9 guys have been demonstrating, along with Reels. Reels even did well with it, and he's not a Cloud9.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced by it. After seeing Sludge Belcher in action, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know how good it was going to be. So it's really tore up the last couple of rounds, and I'm excited to see some more of it. I'd be very surprised if Paladin didn't kind of start becoming a mainstay.
Did you have any opinions on the rest of this Wings cards, by the way? The Stone Skin Gargoyle? Or
well, the Gargoyle's not very exciting yet. It's pretty hard to get value out of. In addition to being if it gets out of control, it's just a pretty easy silence target. The fact that it's just a 3-mana 1/4 isn't very strong. It's not the stats you need. And then I don't even remember what the other card was.
No. The other cards we've seen: Lotheb, Undead Ghoul, and the
Undead Ghoul. That's the one. Yeah, the Undead Ghoul is it's making a big impact, but I think it's right where it's at is it fits really well into warrior control, and then I don't know how much you can utilize it in other decks. So Strifeco is actually playing Undead Ghoul in his Paladin deck, but I'm not sure how important it is. It seems like it's relevant, but it's definitely a lot stronger in warrior than I think it would be in Paladin.
Well, time will tell. We're ready for our first game between Strifeco and Firebat. Let's jump to the board and find out what's going to happen. Now, Firebat, he is recently signed the Copenhagen Wolves, so he's a guy that's kind of been playing for the underdog, not as the unknown guy, but also as the team that's kind of been on the underdog. Like, Copenhagen Wolves isn't one of those fanatics or evil geniuses or Navis, right? They're not like the big, intimidating guys that you always expect to do super well. I think Firebat fits there really nicely. Not many people know about him too much, but they're going to start respecting his play when they start seeing great dominance from him.
Indeed. Kind of a weak starting hand for them. The Flare is something you can just blaze right out of the gate. It's a solid one-drop, gets it out of your deck, draws the card. Always a fine card to keep in your opening hand. Leroy, on the other hand, is not what he wants to see early on.
No.
He's okay with the Starving Buzzard, but if he doesn't pair that with a couple of beasts, that may be stuck in his hand as well. Strifecrow, on the other hand, pained over this decision. Whether or not he keeps this engine or not. Ysera is also sort of
playing
interesting.
Ysera. Yeah, I was very curious about that. That's very
it really shows. It really is telltale of the fact that he wants to grind his opponents out of the game.
Well, that's what Paladin does best.
Right, and Ysera is like sort of the ultimate grind you out of the game trump card. It's like, oh, you thought you had me, did you? Haha! 4/12 that draws more cards.
Ridiculous.
But it draws cards from thin air. It doesn't like draw from your deck. So
that's also important. In fatigue battles, that's so clutch. Especially if you're feeling like you're going to be facing off against druids. You know, Ysera is one of those cards where druids just really have a hard time answering it immediately. They need to do something very wild, like Mark plus Black Knight or something in order to deal with it efficiently.
Yep. The turn 1 web spinner ends up being like a really good draw.
It's exactly what he needs. The web spinner is so fun. Especially turn 1, you just know how much it harasses your opponents because they just don't want to give you that minion. It's just a token from hell, honestly.
And it's a beast.
And it's a beast. Gives you that Houndmaster kill command synergy.
True to the nature of Strifecrow, he just never ever uses hero power if he has the opportunity to play a minion.
It's so funny because some players feel like they have to maximize hero power value as well.
Yeah, it's a really unique style. Like he uses his hero power, what feels like, less than anyone else. And then the times when he uses them and it ends up making a big difference, it's like always such a weird spot to use it. Like I've seen him attack Sylvanas for 1 when they're at 5/5s and then pass the turn. And I'm just like, what on earth are you doing, Strifecrow? And then 3 turns later, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, well, Strifecrow is going to attack into us, not get fooled by the possibility of something like a Houndmaster and claim immediate value. A web spinner claims a web spinner. Of course it does. Wow. Did you know that, Admirable?
I didn't know he could even do that.
Well, you know what? It gives you another thing to do, I suppose. But I guess in this respect, Firebat wants to kind of rack in the damage. Use his hero power. It seems like he's very intent on utilizing his hero power as the mid-range hunter to kind of keep racking damage. And I think against Paladin, it makes sense. You know, Paladin does have a lot of heals, so you get it out earlier and kind of force it onto your opponent. The explosive trap also does end up triggering killing off this Farseer, which is also a very nice play.
Yeah, because of the unstable. Wow.
Interesting.
Do you play Wild Pyro here, or do you hold this?
Wild Pyro against Hunter? Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's also a great way to respond to Haunted Creeper as well. So maybe you kind of hold it, but...
I think it's kind of tough. I think it's absolutely what he's thinking about. He's also... He moused over the Holy Light. I think he's considering investing that 2 mana now.
I think so. It makes sense, Brandon. You're going to be playing it anyways. Most likely you'll be playing on yourself, especially if he's hero powering as much as he can. So I think Strifecrow will have to make that decision. There also is something to be said that you don't want to hero power too much, because if you hero power, you eventually limit your own development of the board if you feel like you're going to play too much into Unleash the Hounds, and that's one way to kind of rebound back into the game.
Is it that important? Is it that important to be using the hero? To be investing in it that early though? I mean, because now you find yourself in spots like this where you kind of wish that you had something a little bit easier, I think, to trigger your Wild Pyromancer. Not that he's like going to have trouble clearing this board. I mean, he can do it if he wants to. The issue is, though, is that he has to use coin, and with the way his hand is scaling, it's like coin is so important here. He needs to use the coin at such a crucial turn. That's actually just maybe a Sunwalker turn. It could also be a Black Knight turn. Like, all of his turns lead to such different routes that I don't know which one to take.
The problem with Sunwalker is that it's really passive, and it allows your opponent to kind of set up a board in response to it, like high main, and then deal with your Sunwalker. And all of a sudden, you're in a really tough spot.
Like how it's gonna be hard to get more value out of Black Knight, right?
I just hope this web spinner claims another web spinner. By the way, I'm just putting it out there. Because then someone has to run the RNG on that. Oh, it's a Timberwolf. Okay. Well, that actually might be really clutch. Depends on how the next couple of draws pan out.
He does not have an efficient way to deal with this Black Knight either. I guess you could freezing trap it, but
not with Second Hound Master in your hand. Not like that. You can't even like go super ham and try to draw on something like Unleash the Hounds. I think the Spiders is your best bet here.
You just Houndmaster again?
What is it, set up a 3-4? I don't know. That still makes you really vulnerable to like consecration and stuff. Wow, he's having a really hard time thinking about this too.
This is a tough turn. I mean, none of your plays are very appealing.
Oh wow, and then this concentration is gonna wreck face. Assuming that he just basically lets what's on the board live.
Wow, there are just no strong plays here. Everything leaves you so vulnerable. This is why Paladin's gotten so good all of a sudden, though. It's like gotten just a little bit extra oomph in this mid game that it's able to be played. Because this is the portion of the deck that if it drew this, it was always doing well to begin with. But there were a couple of cards in it that were really not carrying as hard as you wanted them to. But now that you get to this point, it's like these are great. Like
people just forgot why Paladin was good. They just assumed it was bad because no one was playing it. But it's got good responses. It's got really strong class cards.
It was pretty bad, but it's like now it's not bad. It's got actual good drops at the rest of like the entire course of the game.
It was good in theory, right? Like what it could do, but it's just that the metagame was too fast for it. But when you kind of able to slow it down, things end up all of a sudden becoming much more reasonable for it. All right. Wild Pyro does come out with it. He does open himself up to Unleash the Hounds, but at least he gets a full board clear.
2-point Unleash the Hounds isn't the worst, though. I think you're totally fine with that. Especially when you're at 26 life and you have this hand.
Yep. You have lay on hands to kind of keep the gas going, too.
I don't know. I think is Fireback gonna have to take just like a really aggressive turn here? Like I think you have. I mean, clearing seems like it's a better option, and you're kind of just hoping that you draw into Unleash the Hounds, and you're able to really turn the cards around. But Paladin, God, he's just gaining so much health.
He is, and it's gonna make it so difficult to deal with when you drop really big minions back to back to back. Guardian of Kings, cool. But then you have like Sunwalkers and stuff, and you can't even utilize the bow as effectively as you want it.
I think he's considering Sunwalker because he might want to use Lay on Hands, but I think Guardian Kings is just better.
I mean, Guardian Kings is also not wasted in any respect. So you're very careful about what kind of maximum damage every hunter can do with things like Kill Command.
That's a really bad draw right now.
Can you go for it with Buzzard and try to just keep drawing?
I don't think so. You only have one draw right now. I think you just have to take 5 damage. You can consider using. I guess you can Hunter's Mark.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, this is probably better than taking 5 damage, but that second Eagle Horn bow was basically not a draw. Like he basically just didn't draw a card this turn.
Tough luck for Firebat. Partially also why some hunters like running only one copy of the bow. They feel like they're only going to need one throughout the course of the game. Okay, well, Shrifecrow does pick up the Kodo, which can be nice value if his opponent has something like Oasis Snapjaw. And I've been on that receiving end of the Kodo, and let me tell you, it sucks. Big time. This insight brought to you by Frodo.
That 1/1 is doing so much work versus this freezing trap now.
Yeah.
God, there are just no series of plays that are good in this particular game.
He's passed 3 turns in a row. Oh my god. How awful is that if you're Firebat? How unsettling is that too if you're Shrifecrow? You're like, what are you holding?
I I don't think he's really worried about it. I think he just keep going for the dome. Like, what is he worried about?
Well, I mean,
Just keep piling on 4 or 5 minions.
I
You're
think
26.
you're more curious than worried. How about that?
You just want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Curiosity killed the cat. He could always just wait and let his opponent play all his cards.
True. Okay. Well, he does have a web spinner.
got
That's good
behind
for continuing
Unleash.
the draws. Wants an unleash. Shield
Not
command.
right yet.
So animal companion. Maybe we can get him to that unleash point.
Ooh, he makes a huffer.
Mm.
Still short.
Wow. And at this point, he needs to kind of, again, he could trade his health as a resource, use kill command to kind of essentially wipe the board other than this one token. But man, does that feel uncomfortable. I think he almost, at this point, you're not really left with a choice. You're just basically playing a survival game.
Yep. Brutal spot to be in.
This web spinner still might be able to pick up something nice. But at the same time, how can you really expect to win from this position? You're at the 100. Oh, man, Lotheb can also seal the deal, too. Because then you kind of prevent him from being able to do anything else in response.
You just attack the buzzard, Kodo, Lotheb? How worried are you about those 1/1s?
We'll use both Hound Masters. A Consecration is a safe play. Consecration, Lotheb.
Yep.
And then you
that
set up
works as
lethal
well.
for the following turn. I mean, you have that 6 damage anyways.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't. I mean, there's just nothing he's worried about. He doesn't. He doesn't need the consecration for anything, I guess.
Nope.
Now that I think about it, he's already got Wild Pyromancer. He's still at 24. He's got Lay on Hands.
He's gonna
does he
play a
do?
7-mana freezing trap. Oh my god. That is ridiculous, to say the least.
Lotheb costing more feels really, really ironic.
Oh my god, you're totally right. Well, you know, he stayed alive for now, but he still has a bigger problem, a bigger macro problem of how he's kind of win from this position.
Yep.
I mean, you just smack down Lotheb again.
Yep.
Why not?
Still threatening lethal.
And Firebat, from this point on, draws his own Lotheb, which might have been more useful earlier on when he was just hero power passing every single turn.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna do it. He has to Leroy the Lotheb to stay alive.
Yes.
Oh gosh, that feels awful.
Kill off a token. See what your opponent can do.
Oh jeez.
Well,
Ah, the
you can
old
also
13 cross
Kodo.
Lay on Hands.
You guess you draw, see what you get. Maybe flip for a Tyrion.
Ooh.
Tyrion is also pretty good too. I think you're completely fine taking this 50-50. Your
Yeah.
opponent ready to use Leroy. There's really nothing you're afraid of. Sure, it missed, but Kodo's still Kodo.
It's still a 1 power guy versus a 3 power guy and another 3 power guy. This is. I want to get excited for this for this draw, but I just don't believe it. There's just nothing Fireback can pick up that really changes this one. I mean, we've tried to make it exciting up to this point, but this game has just been a stomp fest in favor of Paladin. And I'll tell you what, it's no surprise really if Paladin gets rolling into these mid turns and it's safe. Guardian of Kings puts it back at 30, and then he's got Lay on Hands for backup. Like he hasn't even used Lay on Hands yet.
Well, he's
It's
gonna
just
live another
moving.
turn. Imagine that.
Unless.
Yeah, he's still got him on that 12 clock turn with his hero power. Or something like that. There's really nothing that he can do. Strife Crow's got everything at his disposal.
And
He
he's
can
about
draw
to put
cards.
his faith in the light.
Yeah, I think at this point he could use Lay on Hands on his opponent and still win. I think if you want to go for maximum BM.
Oh, he's going for maximum BM.
Wow. Just
Hey, you know what? If he just
draw
would have
cards.
it would have been over.
Why
like if he
not?
just attacked the Acolyte in.
Yeah. He's back at 30 health.
Yeah.
You know, I have never seen Strifegro be able to, like, burst his opponent, because Paladin still has some ability to do damage, right? With weapons, with something on his board, with something like Avenging Wrath, but I don't even know if he runs Avenging Wrath, in which case, I guess he doesn't really have the option to burst, but Paladin can sometimes. And yet, Strifeco is winning these games by just playing it old-timer style, just never allowing his opponent to be able to grab any kind of advantage whatsoever, systematically taking out the board. I don't know. I just want Strifeco right now to kind of win the flashiest way possible, but at this stage, I think there's no real difference whatsoever.
None of the plays are very flashy at this point. It's just like true silver champion and attack. Maybe he'll clear his board first. Maybe draw something to clear it. Yeah, that's just going to do it. Game 1's going to go over to Strifeco finally. This grueling battle of Paladin healing turn after turn after turn and playing big threat after big threat. And Firebat cripples under the amount of value pressure that this Paladin was able to apply. And wow,
Paladin ended the game with almost 30 health and almost a full hand.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I continue to be impressed. I'm continuing to be impressed by this Paladin deck.
Very nice.
I'm sorry to interrupt you over and over again, because I'm just a jackass sometimes. I can't wait to actually try this deck out.
No, of course, man. You're totally entitled to your enthusiasm, especially since, again, people kind of see Admirable on the casting desk, but he's also a top-level player, so they forget that Admirable was a guy who claimed, what was it, number 4 or something in Legend in Season 1?
Yeah, it was 4th in an A, yeah.
Wow. I know I totally guessed that number, but I'm glad I got it right. I had 1 in 16 chance, and I got it. So sometimes it happens, man. Sometimes it happens. All right, so we're getting ready for game number 2. Strifeco does go up 1-0. Firebat has Paladin, or he has a Paladin go up against with his Druid or Shaman. And we saw Shaman kind of still buckle under that pressure with Paladin in terms of the value game. But I think that was also just a victim of the sequencing of the draws and how it kind of panned out. I still think Shaman can have a fighting chance, but Paladin seems to have his number with those board clears. Like, Shaman still kind of struggles if you can repeatedly clear the board a lot. And I think the 2 equality sometimes is that magic number to be able to throw Shaman off. So maybe in that respect, Firebat doesn't feel very comfortable with Shaman, but at the same time, it's not like Druid's exactly that much better. Depends.
Yeah, I probably would tend to go with Druid here. I'm not thrilled about it, but I think it's a much better job than Shaman's going to do. Shaman's just crippling under all of your sweeps. Like the whole point of Shaman is to get to a point where you have an overwhelming board pressure, and you're supposed to do that through kind of these tempo plays with things like Unbound Elementals and Feral Spirits and Azure Drake providing a little bit extra oomph and the spell power, and then Fire Elementals. But that's just, it's so rarely, I feel like it's so rarely happening in this matchup. Like, I'm not thrilled about it at all, because the other thing too is you want to get your totems active, and against a deck that has 2 natural, very easy to use board sweepers, and then after they've used those, they have 2 more between they have 2 consecrates to sweep out all your totems, and they also have equalities and unstable ghoul or equality and wild pyromancer to help clean it up. I feel like you're finding yourself in a really bad position over and over again.
Equality plus the ghoul. I didn't think about that immediately, but it makes perfect sense. All right. Well, Firebat also kept the Azure Drake, which is an important keep. Again, this game can also be about the card advantage, right? Because more cards means better options to utilize removal or how you kind of address the board in an optimal way, which allows you to play more efficiently, and as a result, just win the game based off momentum. Right. So Firebat making an interesting choice. He's going to use his hero power to coin out a totem, which isn't always the most common play. What do you think about this?
I think I've certainly done this before. And sort of my goal behind it is my hand feels like it's really bad, so I just need to get stuff rolling. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. I'd be surprised if he made a totem before attacking here, too. I think he wants to make another 1-1. Oh, I'm wrong.
Well, he has Feral Spirit, so his next turn seems pretty clear in that respect.
Yep. This has got to be a trade here, right? Maybe not. Man, I'm off today.
Well, I mean, these are the small decisions that these players... it's a stylistic choice, honestly.
Yep.
Who feels like they're the control player? A lot of times the Paladin really does.
Yep. I feel like in this matchup, it's a little bit... It means a little bit less because your opponent has incidental healing, if that's what you want to call it. Like, True Silver Champion's usually going to be attacking no matter what anyway. So he's just going to heal up to 30 and then continue to go down from there. So I'm not sure the damage even matters.
Most likely not, but at least he's able to kind of get an advantage. They ended up trading anyways in his favor. He was also hoping for something, maybe like an ability to kind of address the Acolyte, but He's going to use the Earth Shock immediately.
You know, the other thing to note, too, is that it does open his opponent up to being able to make mistakes. Like, say, Strife Crow decides to attack back for one, and then he's able to make a third totem. The third totem's either going to be Healing Totem or Taunt Totem. So if Strife Crow foregoes the trade, it actually ends up being a mistake. So that could be what he was opening his opponent to.
Ah, okay. Well, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Very small, but could possibly be relevant.
Well, you never know until you try. I don't know if it would work against someone like Strife Crow. He is more of that defensive player. He can make those defensive calls when he needs to, but he also can make those aggressive calls. I think it's kind of case by case. Firebat picks up the Nerubian Egg, a card that shows lots of versatility in Shaman recently. How versatile is it in this position?
Yeah,
his opponent just played second Acolyte.
Yeah, this feels like a really weird spot to me because you don't want a Lightning Bolt, but you don't want a Rock Biter because you just picked up the egg. But you don't want to let the Acolyte go through. It's this is sort of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't spot.
Yeah, lose, lose, lose. And I think he's just going to commit to this and remove the Acolyte with the Rock Fighter.
I think this is his best option.
Huh. Firebat's like one of the first players to admit his mistakes very commonly. If that's even a mistake. Is it a mistake? Maybe he's selling it like it is, but it's not.
You saw the look on his face was a little bit pained. I mean, he's going into an overloaded turn next turn, so it would make a lot of sense to use Lightning Bolt.
I can't think if he played that out of order of some kind. Like, there's only two ways to play that turn: Feral Spirits and Rock Biter, or Rock Biter then Feral Spirits. Either way,
I don't think it makes a difference.
It doesn't make a difference, so
the order. He could have used it on one of his totems and taken one less damage, because the Healing Totem is going to heal it right back up to full.
That is completely true. Missed it. All right, well, Firebat now picks up the Haunted Creepers. Let's see. The Ruby Egg you want to get down as soon as possible because what it does against Consecration makes you more resilient to the AoE. So you want to push it out as soon as you can. That Belcher, though, is going to do so much work.
Yeah, this is a looming presence. One of your wolves is going to bite the dust, but the other one's going to get healed. At least you're a little bit consecrate-proof now. That's something that's on the bright side.
Definitely. I think that's one of the biggest fears of Shaman, for sure. Until you draw something like Defender of Argus.
Ooh, second True Silver.
True Silver is also generally pretty decent. A lot of the mid-rangey creatures, like Shaman has some 5 health creatures, but you usually have an ability to take out almost anything with the True Silver Champion plus tokens and whatnot. So it is very versatile.
Strife Crow, no options other than to attack the face, Healing Totem. Doing a little bit of work here. Ooh, a Flame Tongue Totem finds its way to the hand. This is almost certainly a Doomhammer or an Azure Drake turn, though. I cannot imagine doing not one of those plays.
Is he afraid of something like Harrison Jones? I wonder.
Well, if he's afraid of something like Harrison Jones, now is the time you need to use their Doomhammer to give your opponent less chances to draw it.
Sure.
This also is a really strong board development card, because now he's been going into 5 mana on the next turn, so he'll still be able to play Azure Drake, and Doomhammer's already been developed, so this is going to start countering these 1/1s and any little minions that he's going to play afterwards. He also feels comfortable using his life total as a resource because this Paladin deck isn't putting a lot of pressure on him, and he's seen enough of it, and I think he expects enough of honest play from Strife Crow that he's not going to see something like a Leroy Burst combo.
No. That's pretty ridiculous. Some people have tried it. I think even
for a while, I think it was necessary because everyone was like, no one was running taunt minions, and you needed to get to the end game, and then Leroy with Blessing of Might, and then a Faceless Manipulator. That was, I mean, it was 18 points of damage. It's not that it's bad, but Paladin is one of these decks that like its burst combo doesn't function as well as just actually being able to choke their opponents out of the game. Like, it's a war of attrition as far as they're concerned, because so many of their cards just have natural healing on them. Like, you look at, they're able to use 2 copies of Holy Light because they get so much value throughout the course of the game. And then you tack that onto True Silver Champions, Guardian of Kings, and Lay on Hands, and suddenly, how much healing is that? 4, 8, 2 Holy Lights. That's 12 more. That's 20, 28 from Lay on Hands, and then 6 more. He's got 34 points of healing in his deck. So, like, there's no reason to have a burst combo. You can actually just grind them out.
Speaking of, like, grinding and playing slow, Striker was just hero power passing. He doesn't feel comfortable whatsoever. He doesn't have any board clear AoE. And now he's going to use, most likely, to take out his Drake. Maybe re-equip a True Silver. But at that stage, he's playing this super slow and very patiently. And it makes sense. Shaman's not exactly pressuring him back.
Yeah, he doesn't feel under a lot of pressure. And there's even if he had a board sweep, this probably wouldn't be the turn to use it. And this is truly an example of how he intends to just grind his opponent out of the game. It's hard for his opponent to commit to the board while Strifeco's got so many cards in his hand. And eventually he's going to get to a point where Ysera's on the board, and if it doesn't get answered immediately, he is going to pull very far ahead in the attrition race. Or in the attrition war. Is it a race? Attrition war?
It's more of a war, because attrition and race don't really...
Yeah,
it's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yep.
Okay, well, he top decks a Rubian Egg. He does have Fire Elemental. And allows him to, again, just play this game where just kind of, throw small thing out here, small thing out there. But Paladin's playing so patiently. Your Firebat, you're... I guess you just do what you only can do, which is keep hero powering. Eventually, things like the Taunt Totems also become really annoying for Paladin to deal with if you're able to continue to control the board.
How comfortable do you feel here just going hero power to hero power if you're in the Shaman's position? Like, do you feel like you're falling behind?
It depends on how you feel your late game matches up with the Paladin. And in that case, in that respect, I think if you just let him keep racking up equalities and consecrates, you definitely do feel behind. What do you think?
Well, I think if he plays his Fire Elemental, he definitely feels behind.
What's it going to come up on his opponent's turn? Maybe he's expecting something like Guardian of Kings. Sunwalker top deck. Of course, we know the reason why Shreko hasn't been playing anything. Because he hasn't been drawing much like questions. He's been drawing answers, right?
Right. But that's the nature of this deck, is it wants to be responsive. And it feels comfortable being responsive because it has cards like Sludge Belcher, Sunwalker, and lots of heals.
Super reactive to everything. I don't think dropping something like Ysera immediately is wise. Because then you're asking your opponent to start picking up value and card advantage.
Well, now he's got to start thinking about how he actually takes care of everything. Let's see. This wouldn't surprise me to see this at all. So if you see Wild Pyro with Equality, and then it's followed by Aldor Peacekeeper on the 4/4 and Hero Power.
Ah, that's right.
You could also just use a True Silver charge. So he doesn't even have to use an Aldor Peacekeeper.
Okay. Well, I kind of assumed that maybe he wanted to play an Aldor because the Fire Elemental just came out. So it's one less removal options directly on it. I also thought that maybe he was going to employ Humility instead, but I guess Humility makes for a very versatile combo for when you inevitably draw into, like, Kodo.
Yeah. Humility also is good to save because it doesn't put a 3/3 on the board and because it also functions with Wild Pyromancer.
Right, that's why I thought he was going to use Humility in respect to do, like, a double board clear with, I don't know, something like Holy Light, but it seems like his way was just a little bit more directly clean. Makes sense. Yeah. I just like saving equality as long as possible. But yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I know it's important in this matchup, but I'm curious how important it is. Like, it really shows that when he uses equality there instead of using an alternate clear, what it tells us is that he's more practiced in this matchup than we are. So he understands exactly how much damage he needs to push through in the end. I think that's coming into his decision a lot. And now he's finding himself a little bit short, though. This is sort of the turns that can get scary for Paladins when they don't have a way to start swinging the board.
Absolutely. Shaman can kind of handle the first board clear pretty easily. You know, you just totem up Feral Spirits, something equivalent to that, maybe even Defender of Arcus, and then you're back in it. Right. It's just when you repeatedly clear Shaman, that's when they struggle with, because just look at the reload of what Firebat has. He has responses and ways to boost his board presence with something like Flame Tongue Totem. That's not exactly the best way. So if Shreko has something like Consecrate to kind of continue on the pressure, It would have been bad. He's going to go for the Ysera before his Sunwalker. And we'll see what he's going to draw. Ysera awakens. I can't even begin to describe how much of a bad day Shamans will have.
Picks up an Emerald Drake, which still isn't bad. A 7/6 is nothing to scoff at right now.
With a deck with limited late-game threats, with Paladin, because it's so responsive to everything, with double Holy Lights and whatnot, I think Emerald Drake's not bad at all.
Yeah, I agree.
It's similar to the way like a Priest functions, where Priest isn't exactly throwing out that many big, intimidating threats. It's the fact that if they add any more threats and they still have the responses, then Priest becomes really deadly.
Which is what makes Thought Steal such a key card.
Absolutely.
In that deck. You're picking up some more win conditions. So here, this is a pretty clear Hex, I think. I don't really see many other options for Hex, but there are a few options on how you follow up with this. And I still don't think this is a Flame Tongue turn. I think he considered using Flame Tongue, but I don't know, maybe it is, and he just needs to start pushing for damage. If that's what he's got to do, that's a pretty rough spot, but I don't think that's the case.
I like developing the spiders before the Flame Tongue, though, because of what the tokens can do and the flexibility you have. It just makes much more sense. So I'm on this side of the camp, where I think you put out the minions that you want to develop, and you always surprise with Flame Tongue. Plus, if Flame Tongue does damage and then he clears, then you're just kind of sad, because your Haunted Creeper becomes much weaker.
Yeah. Haunted Creeper is also pretty good against these shields.
You know, Firebat's actually really well tooled to fight against a lot of these things. You know, the healing totem to kind of combat the undead ghoul. He's got like these small little token things to fight off big divine shields, and Flame Tongue totem to kind of respond to the big taunters.
Yeah, lots of really strong answers, but he's also running. Oh,
nice.
Wow. Just when I said he was running short of cards, that's a really important one right now.
That is excellent.
Still
he might
tough
be able
to argue.
Up super value if he rolls up something. Second,
oh my gosh.
Flame Tongue totem.
That could start coming to a lot of damage. He had Alec here earlier, right? We're not just crazy.
I believe that was him. We also saw Alec here from Alchemixed, but I also believe Alec here is in this deck.
Not.
You know, if you totem here, you're basically saying your 1/1s in response are not as powerful.
Oh my gosh, he gets the lightning bolt now.
Yeah, he gets a lightning bolt, but he does give up one of his 1/1 tokens, which I think you're okay with.
Did he not count? Did you see him grab for the Flame Tongue totem? Did he forget that he has a full board of minions?
Oh my god, really? I don't think so.
Take more damage.
Did he really miscount that? No, I think Firebat kind of knows what he's doing. I kind of have to trust him on this one.
What on earth?
He's going to lower himself to 10. Huh.
Wow, that shows how he's really comfortable playing against the fact that Strifro likely doesn't have a lot of bursts in his deck. I think that's actually a really heads-up play now that I think about it.
He's essentially saying that 10 health is exactly where I'll be sitting for a long time. I think Strifecrow, did he show double True Silver already too? I think so.
2 True Silvers have been used.
So there's no way to just directly kill him. He also saw the Emerald Drake, so he's not afraid of something like Ysera Awakens. So this is a big board development play, using his health as a resources, realizing that Strifecrow probably just can't directly kill him and keep him honest. And Strifecrow is sitting at a high enough health, but there's a lot of opportunity for his opponent to just start racking it up to him.
This is a really tough... This is a matter of the entire board versus the entire hand. And I'm not sure which one I favor at this point.
Well, Strifecrow still has another equality. He has picked up none of his consecrations.
I don't even know if consecration's really good right now because of the egg sitting there.
Well, it wouldn't hurt to at least have it at your disposal for the upcoming turns. I'm not saying he needs to have just consecration, but he wants to pick up something equivalent in the future.
Oh my gosh.
Flame Tongue value is going to be massive.
And that is also a 4 to 5 point lightning storm right now, which makes a big difference in how he can impact this board.
You are totally correct, sir.
I'd be stunned if you didn't see Flame Tongue Totem this turn. Because he can remake any of his lost, basically any of his lost totems too.
Sure.
The healing totem's not very important at the moment.
I don't think so. And you can get some really nice Lightning Storm value right off here.
Yep. If this totem if this rolls high, this is a major difference in how this game's going to pan out.
You don't think it's that 1 damage difference? Or that 2 damage difference with the totem?
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Okay. Well, I mean,
So he loses 2 points of damage.
It loses 2 points, but in the end, the effect is about the same either way, because the board's still just as intimidating with equal removability for Strifecrow. He needs to kind of pick up something immediately. One thing that Paladin has always kind of struggled with is card draw. That's why things like Acolyte are pretty important, actually, for the Paladin. Things like Lay on Hands, things like Acolyte, because the things don't naturally draw. And when you remove things like Azure Drakes, you're basically counting on every single draw hitting what you want as Paladin as well. Makes sense.
Gosh, this is tough still. Do you just play all your minions on the board and hope for the best? That's always feels like the worst spot to be in, is when you just have to play stuff and kind of you're at the mercy of your opponent's board.
Well, he's not really that afraid of Rockbiter anymore. There's only 1 charge left on the Doomhammer, so I think at this stage you're just worried about something like Alec here ending the game. Yeah, but I do think you kind of have to expend what you have. Strifecrow's kind of in a tough position. Firebat still has 1 Flame Tongue Totem, though. That allows him to get really good trades, despite all these Humilities and Peacekeepers coming out. Alakir! Top deck! With a 2nd Flame Tongue Totem. Oh, he's overloaded, I forgot. Lightning Storm.
Oh my gosh. I still think that's really good right now. 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's got 13 points of damage.
Okay.
He doesn't have quite lethal, but that's a big board presence to be staring down if you're Strifecrow. That is not what you want to be looking at.
Then if he has like an equality off the top, oh my god, that would be just ridiculous on the kind of board swing. But he still has the Nerubian Egg as the insurance. It's a good kind of backup policy.
Plus the 2 spiders.
That's right. The 2 spiders off the Hunter.
I don't know if Strifecrow's going to be able to win this one. That draw was very important.
Do you like trying to use the Flame Tongue immediately before you play Alakir and like put damage on like your Unbound or?
Well, right now he can't. He wants to use the Alakir shield to attack. He's got to hurry up though.
Yeah, he's only got about 15 seconds left.
He wants to use the Alakir shield to attack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go. Here you go, Firebat. No! Oh, barely just in time. Okay, what's it going to be for Strifecrow? Needs to pick up something big. Tyrion is a big minion that he can kind of address something with.
Oh my gosh, and then 2 swings of Tyrion the game.
I like playing Undead Ghoul here, because if you draw into a quality, it might be exactly what you need. Because even if you draw a quality, you need a way to proc it. I think you can't play it right now because they're both gonna have taunt, so you can just kill the unstable ghoul and it's gonna proc the shield on your Tyrion. I think you just have to play Tyrion to make a token or Holy Light yourself. And he's counting to see how important it is to Holy Light himself. I think he's got to do that. This is like a really tough spot all of a sudden. That Alakir really turned this game around. The Divine Shield seems kind of about the same though, because he can pop it either way. Defender of Argus.
See, there's got to be some sort of weird lethal here, right?
There's got to be something. If you screenshot it, maybe there's a way to kind of squeeze it in. With Flame Tongue Totem and Defender of Argus, that's 16 damage alone from the Alakir.
14 on the Alakir. Okay, so Unbound's 4 damage, and then the Azure Drake is going to be 3 more. So Tyrion falls to that. 16. I think he's just short. It looks like he's got 20 points of damage to me. Wait a minute. No, because the Azure Drake is going to bump one over. It's going to bump one over one more.
Yeah. So now you can trade with the Azure Drake, and he can trade with the Unbound. So now he's got 14,
okay, so it's 14,
17,
15,
19.
16,
He's got Defender of Argus, and that should
21.
be enough.
This looks like 21 to me. He can't Defender of the Alakir, though. The other way he loses the Flame Tongue bonus. Yeah.
Oh, but he gets.
This is really close, though. I mean, this is
that's as close as it gets. He is one.
He is one damage off lethal.
Oh man, what a puzzle!
Look at the wall he's got set up too. StrifeCrow has got one card that can keep him in the game, though, and he doesn't draw it. Equality was what he needed.
How do you even follow up on equality? What do? You equality and then
you play equality, play the ghoul, and then pass.
I think that's